the ordinary, the in-between, the pathway to a remedy, the bearing with suffering, and the crossing over from death to life. And so most of the healing prayer books out there just deal with one of those aspects. But I do believe that it's necessary to embrace the fact that everyone deserves love, everyone deserves kindness,
Absolutely.
everyone deserves a chance. So this is a bridge. So I wanted to get into the meat of what we'd like to talk to you about. I know Tennille gave you some coaching and some ideas. So Tennille, you want to ask the first question? We wrote up some questions, and I think it's appropriate for you to ask it because you generated the question of Irek before the interview started.
Yeah, absolutely. So Eric, I just wanted to ask you, so you were called into going into government. So how did that affect you? How did God call you into working in the government to make change in our area?
Yeah, well, you know, they always say God works in mysterious ways, and just a little bit of background for me. I studied journalism as my undergraduate studies, and I always saw myself as being a journalist, a reporter, someone that will cover the news and cover politics. Something about my family as well too. Our family came to Canada as political refugees. My father was actually in the Solidarity movement in Poland, fighting for the rights of workers against a very brutal totalitarian regime, the communist regime that was there. And of course, you know how especially religious organizations and people of faith were persecuted under communist dictatorships. And so my father was electrical engineer, worked in a factory of about 7,000 people that were building ball bearings in a town in southeast Poland, a little town of 40,000 people, but they had this big factory there. And I'll never forget, in the middle of the night, the secret police and the military, the police there came knocking on my door just after, or our door just after midnight, and arrested my father in the middle of the night and took him away. And we didn't know whether he was alive or dead for 2 weeks. It was only 2 weeks later that we found out that he was being detained. And after his release, this the country, the military police and the government declared martial law on December 13th, I should say,
That's
1981.
1989 or 88, something like that.
1981,
Yeah.
1981, yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
And so after he was released again, he was dubbed an enemy of the state. Our family were harassed, and in all intents and purposes, we were given the boot, and Canada gave us safe harbor. And so that's the story of sort of my family. And again, so we always talked about politics. We always talked about current affairs, what's happening in the community and the country around our kitchen table. It's just something that was part of what we were. I mean, I still remember going to rallies with my dad in Toronto in front of the Polish embassy to protest, the treatment of workers and people in that country. And I still remember going to when Pope John Paul came to Hamtramck just outside Detroit in the 1980s. And I remember going to that outdoor mass and holding a banner that talked about solidarity and protecting workers and people and rights. And so that was something that always sort of propelled me. It was part of who I am, part of my identity. But I always thought I was going to write about politics. I thought I was going to cover politics. I didn't think I was going to be a part of it. And so I ended up getting my doctorate in political science, thinking that I might even teach about politics. And then there was an opportunity to run for local politics in Windsor. Somebody had stepped down on council, and you know what? I just heard you just sort of hear the bell, and you just decide to answer it, and that's how my path in politics began. Is really hearing the call to enter politics at the local level, the municipal level, and what I felt is the need to not just write about politics and not just teach politics, but to actually impact the decisions that are being made, that impact our community and also impact the country. And so that was sort of how I entered into it. And a lot of people of faith sometimes are skeptical about entering politics and entering government. But I have to say that it is something that when I take a pause and I look around and the decisions that we make, it absolutely influences my thinking, what drives me, and the decisions that I make as a member of Parliament. And so, and you look around the House of Commons, 338 members of Parliament. Many of them come from different walks of life. Many of them come from different faiths, and it is always to me astonishing in a good way when you see just how much common ground there is, and how much their faith influences their decisions. And so there absolutely is room and a place for people of faith in the House of Commons, and I highly encourage them to begin on that journey, to begin on that pilgrimage.